The proposed Sing Sing Historic Prison Museum, Village of Ossining, Westchester County, New York. This presentation is about the proposed Sing Sing Historic Prison Museum in the Village of Ossining in Westchester County, New York. This presentation will cover details of the project location, why people will come to the museum, the proposed design concept for the museum, the cost estimates for the project, and the economic benefits for the village and the region. The Hudson River is one of the most beautiful rivers in the world. In recent years, there have been many initiatives to promote the region as a tourist destination. In 2013, National Geographic Traveler proclaimed the Hudson River Valley as one of the top 20 destinations in the world. This region was first made famous in the mid-19th century in the paintings of the Hudson River School. Surprisingly, for an area so close to New York City, many views have stayed the same, although Ossining now has more SUVs than cows in the street. The Village of Ossining is located in Westchester County, just north of New York City. Almost 25 million people live within a 2.5-hour drive of Ossining. The village and Sing Sing are easily accessible by car, bus, train, and even ferry. Traffic is a big issue in the New York metro area, and the project will capitalize on all forms of transportation to minimize the potential traffic generation from the new museum. Sing Sing Correctional Facility opened in 1825 and remains open today as a maximum security facility on the banks of the Hudson River. The 63-acre facility is located on the largest riverfront parcel and is one of the largest parcels in the entire village of Ossining. This aerial photo shows the relationship between Sing Sing, outlined in blue, and the village center, located at the intersection of Main Street and New York State Route 9. Since the mid-1800s, the prison has been bisected by the Metro-North Railroad and even used to have its own station. A commuter ferry dock, adjacent to the village's current train station, is located just a short walk north of Sing Sing. The Village of Ossining is located in regions that have been designated to promote the cultural and natural resources of the Hudson River Valley. The National Heritage Area is a federally designated area, and the Hudson River Valley Greenway is a state-designated area. The museum project is identified as a potential major tourism project in the local Hudson River Valley Greenway Compact Plan. The Ossining Heritage Area is a state-designated area, and the boundaries are just within the Village of Ossining. The themes of the Ossining Heritage Area are the Old Croton Aqueduct and Sing Sing Prison, which were 19th century state-of-the-art advances in civil and social engineering. The current museum for the Ossining Heritage Area is located in the Joseph Caputo Community Center in Ossining. The village is also a member of the historic Hudson River Towns, a consortium of municipalities located along New York's Hudson River from Yonkers to Albany. Historic Hudson River Towns is the leading intermunicipal organization helping the Hudson Valley's riverfront communities build sustainable local economies through tourism marketing, waterfront revitalization, and downtown renewal. The Sing Sing Historic Prison Museum project is supported by Historic Hudson River Towns. New York State is blessed with a linked system of navigable waters extending throughout the state. Boaters can travel from as far as the Great Lakes and Montreal to Ossining via the connected waterways of the St. Lawrence River, Lake Champlain, the Erie Canal, and the Hudson River. The New York Waterway is also a travel route of water-based snowbirds who migrate by boat between Florida and the colder climates to the north. There are 12 million registered boats in the United States, and New York ranks 7th in the country with over 450,000 registered boats. The Hudson River near Ossining is about 3.5 miles wide and bustling with recreational boaters, a resource that this project hopes to benefit from. The proposed museum would complement existing tourist attractions in the Hudson Valley, which include West Point, Dia Beacon, historic Hudson Valley properties, and the Hudson River itself. The proposed Sing Sing Historic Prison Museum would be linked to these destinations by boat, rail, and trails. Existing boat services already have tour packages to some of these destinations. Ossining also has existing commuter ferry service connecting to the village of Haverstraw in Rockland County. Additionally, the destinations shown on the map are proposed to be linked by Westchester's Riverwalk, a planned 51-mile multi-use pathway along the Hudson River. When completed, Riverwalk will link village centers, historic sites, parks and river access points via a connection of trails, esplanades, and boardwalks. The proposed museum will trace the history of Sing Sing Prison since 1825 and place Sing Sing in the wider context of development of the penitentiary system and the history of punishment. The museum will illustrate the prison reform movements that have shaped the modern prison and American culture in general. In the movie classic, Breakfast at Tiffany's, Sing Sing almost seems to be a mythical place.
Yes, I always thought it was a ridiculous name for a prison. Sing Sing, I mean. Sounds more like it should be an opera house or something.
But Sing Sing is not a mythical place. The first cell block at Sing Sing opened in 1825 and remains to this day one of the principal agents of punishment in New York State. Sing Sing's reputation and image evoke a powerful response in the minds of Americans and Europeans. Sing Sing is fixed in the popular imagination as the House of Fear, the Big House, and the Shock Prison. From its very early days, Sing Sing was the destination not only of penologists, but the curious general public who came in such numbers that they became a long-term intrusion in the daily life of the prison. Sing Sing is a view into the dark side of America and has many ties to American culture throughout its history. When Americans won independence from Britain, they viewed vengeful retribution as a brutal remnant of the British monarchy. With the new democracy, there was a search for punishment appropriate to the new republic, rational, certain, humane. There was a shift of punishment from the body to the mind. This movement was influenced by the Enlightenment thinkers such as Cesare Beccaria, Jeremy Bentham, and John Howard. The American experiments with penology were of Quaker influence. Thomas Ed, a Quaker reformist, was a warden at Newgate, New York's first prison that opened in 1797. There was early success in rehabilitating criminals into productive citizens. The prison had congregate rooms, and the prisoners were made productive with work and provided with education. But the prison became overcrowded, and riots and fire ensued, closing the prison in 1828. The failure was attributed to congregate rooms. Sing Sing was established in 1825 and was the first prison to fully use the Auburn system. The Auburn system, also known as the New York system or the silent congregate system, was a new penal system of the 19th century in which persons worked during the day in groups and were kept in solitary confinement at night. The Auburn system was an alternative to and modification of the Pennsylvania system of solitary confinement. The Auburn system also was considered a success because it not only paid for the operation of these new facilities, but turned a profit for the state. The Auburn system and the Pennsylvania system were competing philosophies for many years. The Auburn system, however, gradually replaced the Pennsylvania system throughout the United States. The well-known elements of the early years of the Auburn system were harsh labor, striped uniforms, lockstep, and silence. The system of silence was enforced at all times by whipping and other brutal punishments. The prisoners marched in lockstep, which meant walking in unison with their arms locked to the convict in front of them. The prison site was selected based on the location of Sing Sing marble. New York State saw the mining of the marble as a means to fulfill the goals of paying for the new institution and providing for its economic self-sufficiency. The country was undergoing reconstruction after the Revolutionary War, and there was a great demand for building supplies. Laboring was considered a method of retribution and rehabilitation. Prisoners also were involved with other industries, such as making barrels, boots and shoes, hats, brushes, and mattresses. Sing Sing marble and prisoner labor was used to construct infrastructure in Ossining, such as Secor Road, a road that connects the village center to the waterfront. The marble was also used for Lyndhurst, one of the finest National Historic Landmark estates in Westchester, and Grace Church on Broadway in New York City. The 1825 cell block was constructed by prisoners using Sing Sing marble mined by prisoners. The cells were basically a cubbyhole, 7 foot long by 3 foot wide and less than 7 feet high. And sometimes they housed 2 men. They were so small that the bunk had to be tilted in order to sit in the chair. Originally, the cell block was 476 feet long and 4 cells high, with a total of 800 cells. 2 stories were added to the original cell block to accommodate a rising prison population. The 1825 cell block housed prisoners until 1943. Sing Sing was the site of the first women-only prison created in the United States, the Mount Pleasant Female Prison, which opened in 1839. Before this, men and women were housed in the same building. A Greek temple architectural style was used on the exterior of the prison cell block, but on the inside was an Auburn system plan of stacked cell blocks with a nursery. The women's prison in early years was an institution of controversial reform measures based on phrenology that was overseen by prison matron Elizabeth Farnham. Phrenology is a process that involved feeling the skull to determine an individual's psychological attributes. Mrs. Farnham's controversial measures also included reading books like Oliver Twist and teaching the women to read and write. Some reformers thought Elizabeth Farnham's actions were too liberal, and she was replaced. Eventually, the women's prison was closed at Sing Sing, and a maximum security prison for women was opened about 10 miles east in Bedford Hills, New York. There are numerous famous and infamous convicts that spent time at Sing Sing, including James Larkin, an Irish Union activist, Louis Lemke, head of Murder, Inc., Lucky Luciano, considered the father of organized crime in New York City, and Willie Sutton, the famous bank robber, who, when asked why he robbed the bank, replied, "Because that's where the money is." The legends remain alive through the continual publication of new books and movies about stories linked to Sing Sing, like Sutton, that was published in 2012, and The Lonely Hearts Killers, about Martha Beck and Raymond Martinez Fernandez, a murderous pair who lured their victims through personal ads. Since its inception, Sing Sing has received visitors. Dozens of postcards with images of Sing Sing were printed. The prison has welcomed a wide range of visitors, such as Alex de Tocqueville, Charlie Chaplin, and Joan Baez. Its popularity and worldwide name recognition is tied to the fact that Sing Sing was essentially New York City's prison. Most early prisoners were from New York City. The phrase "up the river" was coined because prisoners were transported up the Hudson River to Sing Sing. New York City's connection with Sing Sing is not only a function of the number of urban criminals in the prison's populations, but a result of the intense focus of the city's newspapers and magazines on events at Sing Sing. The New York Times and other papers reported events at Sing Sing as if it were part of the local beat, and reporters had easy access to the prison. There were over 1,000 stories in the New York Times about the prison between 1858 and 1980. Sing Sing was a popular movie backdrop in the 1930s and 40s and continues to be popular in the film and television industry today. Classic gangster movies like Angels with Dirty Faces, starring Hollywood legends Humphrey Bogart and Jimmy Cagney, sustain the legendary status of Sing Sing. The 1915 silent movie Alias Jimmy Valentine was filmed at Sing Sing and is recognized as the first gangster movie. Sing Sing is associated with the United States' involvement in the Cold War. The Rosenbergs were American citizens who were tried and convicted for espionage related to passing information about the atomic bomb to the Soviet Union. Because the United States Federal Bureau of Prisons did not operate an electric chair at the time, the Rosenbergs were transferred to Sing Sing for execution. The Rosenberg story continues to hold the public's interest as evidenced by the many books and plays written about it. For a period of time, sports were an important element of daily life at Sing Sing. The teams were about the level of a good college team and played against local teams. The Sing Sing team, however, always had the home team advantage, as they never played away games. Area residents would come to watch them play. The New York Yankees played annually at the prison during the 20s, and Babe Ruth was rumored to hit his longest home run here at an exhibition game in 1929. In 2011, the bat used by Babe Ruth to hit the mammoth home run sold at auction for over $125,000. In 1881, New York State established a committee to determine a new, more humane method of execution to replace hanging. The electric chair was developed by employees at Thomas Edison in New Jersey. A building known as the Death House was constructed at Sing Sing to house the electric chair. More than 600 prisoners were executed by electrocution between the 1880s and 1963, when the use of the electric chair ended. The phrase "last mile" comes from the walk death row inmates took to their execution. The proposed museum concept will cover the history of the invention of the electric chair, use of witnesses, and the executioner. The museum design as proposed would allow people a choice to bypass this section of the museum. A series of reports and studies have already been prepared for the project. The original design concept developed in the late 1990s was updated in 2008. The marketing study prepared in 2001 was also updated in 2008. A new study that expanded upon previous studies was prepared by New York University Capstone Team in association with the Westchester County Department of Planning in 2008. Westchester County also hired consultants to prepare an environmental site assessment for the project. The current museum proposal is to develop the museum in 3 stages. The first would be the historic prison museum located in the powerhouse that is located on the correctional facility property but outside the walls of the prison. The second phase would be to stabilize and preserve the 1825 cell block that is located within the correctional facility walls. The second phase would also include the partial recreation of the interior cell block and would provide a secure connection from the museum in the powerhouse to the 1825 cell block. The third phase would be to create an archives and research library in the upper levels of the powerhouse. The powerhouse building that is proposed to be used for the first phase of the project stands just outside the prison wall and was constructed in 1931 with prisoner labor. The building is eligible for the National Historic Register. The building, designed by the New York State Department of Public Works, is an excellent example of the modern style, a branch of what is more commonly known as Art Deco. While the building is no longer used for power generation, some utilities associated with the entire correctional facility remain located in it. A preliminary site plan for the proposed museum has been prepared by the Westchester County Department of Planning. As currently designed, the site can accommodate 93 parking spaces and a bus drop-off. The proposed layout would have the first floor primarily used for the Sing Sing Historic Prison Museum. The large building allows other related uses to potentially occupy portions of the first floor as well, with a separate entrance. The second floor of the building would include the continuation of the multi-story 1825 cell block exhibit and a multi-purpose public assembly room that would have large windows facing the Hudson River. The third floor would also include a section of the multi-story 1825 cell block exhibit, provide space for the proposed research library, and opportunities for an additional multi-purpose space. The fourth floor provides unique opportunities for another building space that could have doors on the north side of the building with access to an outdoor deck. The outdoor deck area would have views of the Hudson River north of the correctional facility. Views into the existing correctional facility would of course be blocked. Attendance is projected to be over 150,000 visitors per year. Considering attendance at other prison museums and local tourist destinations, this is thought to be a conservative estimate. Visitor spending in the region is estimated to be over $13 million. This is from visitors spending money on accommodations, food and beverages, transportation, shopping, and recreation activities. When the indirect and induced spending is added to the direct spending, the effects of visitor spending will be over $24 million of spending and over $7.3 million in wages. The estimated yearly tax revenue for state and local government is estimated at almost $1 million. The estimated construction costs in 2009 dollars can be found in the Sing Sing Historic Prison Museum Complex Concept Design Report, updated by the Westchester County Department of Planning in 2009. The estimated budget for the first phase of the project, the Historic Prison Museum, is estimated to be about $15 million. $3 million of this would be for exhibit installation. The first phase includes rehabilitation of the complete powerhouse building shell and complete construction of the areas used for the Historic Prison Museum. One key economic benefit of the proposed museum will be the creation of jobs in the local labor market. Newly created jobs fall into three categories: construction employment, permanent employment at the museum, and indirect jobs at off-site businesses. Employment for New York State would increase by over 250 jobs, with projected earnings totaling over $7 million. Westchester County is estimated to net 121 of these jobs and over $3 million in earnings. Construction impacts in 2007 dollars are based on a development budget estimate of about $10 million. Based on multipliers from the Bureau of Economic Analysis Regional Input-Output Modeling System, construction of the new museum is estimated to generate 91 one-time direct and indirect person years of employment. These jobs are anticipated to generate over $16 million of spending in New York. The Sing Sing Historic Prison Committee looked at three operational models for the museum and selected a contractual operation model which would keep the museum open year-round. The museum would be run by a management organization that would be paid a fee for their services. It also allows the museum to piggyback onto marketing and promotional campaigns that are already established. The operating expenses associated with the selected model are just over $1.8 million per year. At an admission price of $12 for adults, the museum is anticipated to have an operating surplus of over $59,000 2 years after opening. Profits would go into the museum's operating fund for things like repairs and maintenance. An additional benefit to the region will be increased hotel stays that will result in increased sales and hotel taxes of almost $170,000 for the county and $360,000 for the state. The marketing report estimates that almost 42,000 visitors would stay in a hotel in New York State. All said, this translates into almost $1 million in net new spending at Westchester County accommodations. There is a potential for increase in train ridership with the opening of the Sing Sing Historic Prison Museum. When Dia Beacon opened, Metro North saw a 30% increase in ridership. There used to be a train station at Sing Sing, as shown on this photo. Although this station no longer exists, the Ossining station is only about a 10-minute walk from the proposed museum. The original marketing study done in 2001 estimated the total visitor market population at over 10 million. A significant number of markets in New York were left out of the original analysis. Areas such as Brooklyn, Queens, Long Island, and Union County in New Jersey are all within the time and mileage parameters in the original marketing plan and should be considered viable markets for the museum. These four areas add over 8 million people to the original visitor market estimate, bringing the total potential visitor market to over 18 million. Historic sites are a significant tourism industry in Westchester County and the Hudson Valley. Traditional tourist attractions, such as historic homes, must adapt to the changing markets. The Great Jack-o'-lantern Blaze is the equivalent of the retail market's Christmas shopping season for historic Hudson Valley, which operates several historic properties. Historic Hudson Valley operates in the red until this month-long event occurs. Tourism markets are not the same as they were 20 to 30 years ago. There are new sophisticated niche markets that are essential to market to in order for the tourism destinations to be successful. These include single adventure travelers, seniors, and 24-hour mini vacations to escape New York City. Lyndhurst has recognized this and welcomes various groups that help fund the ongoing preservation of their historic property. Not only was Lyndhurst constructed with Sing Sing marble mined by prisoners, it was also used for the set of the original Dark Shadows television series. Dark Shadows fans come to Lyndhurst every other year, and on these weekends, Lyndhurst experiences their best gift shop sales. Reality tourism is the emerging market, and the Sing Sing Historic Prison Museum will tap into this market. The baby boom generation, which has driven every other element in our economy, is driving the tourism industry. This generation of reality TV and extreme sports craves realism. Alcatraz Island in California is visited by over 1.3 million tourists each year. This number is increasing and making it hard to get tickets. The head of the museum at Alcatraz said that the Sing Sing Historic Prison Museum might be more successful than Alcatraz because the prison at Sing Sing is still open. Sing Sing arguably also has a greater name recognition than Alcatraz, which was only open as a federal prison for 30 years. Thank you for your interest in the Sing Sing Historic Prison Museum. Please join the Friends of the Sing Sing Historic Prison Museum to help establish the new museum. Show your support by following us on Facebook and Twitter. Donations to the museum can be made online at www.hudsonriver.com.